Chapter 17 Act 1.
It's time to plan your inheritance test. This is excellent news,
Anish said, grinning at our parents.
How can we help?
He looked ready to jump out of his chair and run up a mountain if they asked him to. Your eagerness never disappoints, Anish Gawandash. Mom smiled. But before we plan anything, I want you all to consider this question. Why do you want to take an inheritance test? It was a surprisingly difficult question. The fact was, I wasn't particularly interested in the test itself. It was simply a means to an end, the last hurdle on the pathway to adult freedom and independence. I wanted to take the test so it would be over with. Once I finished my test, no one would consider me a kid anymore. I could make my own rules and have my own place to live. I'd never have to share a bathroom with Jadith ever again. But I didn't think that was the answer Mom was looking for. My siblings must have felt similarly stumped. Silence filled the room as we tried to come up with suitably deep answers. Marcus spoke up first.
An inheritance test is the way you gained your knowledge, right? So, if we want to become like you, we need to follow in your footsteps. Well put, Marcus,
Dad said.
When your mother and I were young spirits, our parents created an inheritance test for us to learn self-reliance. Now, we'd like to give you that same opportunity.
Self-reliance? Lucian asked, speaking up for the first time that night. I thought the purpose of an inheritance test was to earn our own lands and kingdoms to rule over. Mom's hand was intertwined with Dad's as they sat side by side. She gave his hand a little squeeze of support before he answered.
We want to give you everything we have, Lucian, Dad explained. Not only our wealth, but also our wisdom and esteem. That which we have, we can easily give you, but that which we are, you must obtain yourselves. You'll receive your inheritance by learning what we have learned and by living as we have lived. Your mother and I will create a test, patterned after the one we experienced in our youth. If you follow your example, mastering as we have mastered, you will become as we are, and all we have will be yours.
Wait! Living as you have lived? Izzy asked. Just how long is this test? I thought it'd be like a list of tasks we have to complete, and then we're done.
The test will be different for each person, Mom explained. Everyone has different needs and will therefore be given different challenges. We'll discuss those specifics at a later time. For right now, I want you all to think less about finishing the test and more about experiencing it. This test will help your personal and spiritual growth. It's not about gaining possessions or power. It's about gaining experience, wisdom, and character.
Dorothea's hand shot into the air. The rest of us always blurted out our comments and questions, but Dorothea relied on strict decorum.
Yes, Dorothea?
Dad invited. Might you describe exactly what the test will entail? Experience, wisdom, and character are nebulous terms. I do better with tangible concepts. Mom looked completely unruffled by Dorothea's blunt request.
Can you define mortality for us, Dorothea?
Dorothea's eyes widened. Mortality, noun, the state of being subject to death, she recited. Dad nodded his approval of the definition.
Your inheritance test, like our test before yours, and our parents' test before ours, will be a trial of mortality. We'll organize a new world for you to experience both the joys and sorrows inherent in possessing a mortal body.
Wait a second, Lucian interjected. He'd spent most of the discussion staring at the floor, resting his elbows on his knees. Now he sat bolt upright, glaring indignantly at our adoptive parents. I don't understand. What's the point of this? How will having a corruptible, mortal body prove anything? It's like being asked to run a race in torn, ratty tennis shoes. We'll be so focused on the battered state of our shoes, we'll be incapable of running to our best ability. Izzy fidgeted in agitation. Marcus frowned and crossed his arms. Dorothea stroked the spine of her book. Everyone was clearly uncomfortable with Lucian's uncharacteristic outburst. But he had a point. We'd studied enough history to know mortal bodies came with disease, decay, and discomfort. Why would we want a handicap during the most important test of our existence? It's good to ask questions, Lucian, Mom said patiently. But you need to be humble enough to accept the answers. The point of the test is not to reach the finish line as fast as possible. The point is to gain insight from the journey. There is much to learn from experiencing mortality. Your father and I would not have the wisdom, strength, confidence, and maturity we enjoy today if we hadn't passed through our test.
Not to mention the depth of our relationship, Dad added, wrapping his arm lovingly around Mom's shoulders. It's impossible for you to understand the power of physical emotions until you have a carbon-based body. In mortality, every feeling, sensation, and emotion is amplified through complex chemical processes. A physical body is a blessing, not a burden.
Okay, so we'll be in a new place feeling a bunch of new things. Jadith waved her hand dismissively. And then what? What exactly are we supposed to accomplish? What do we have to do to pass? Her voice rose in pitch and agitation as she spoke.
I can feel your frustration, said Mom soothingly. I know some of you would prefer a checklist. Perhaps you're hoping we'll say, do 10 good deeds and you'll be handed your kingdom. But that's not how our plan works. We're less concerned about what you do and more concerned about who you become. Many terrible people have done good deeds for ulterior motives, Dad added. Outwardly, they're upstanding citizens, but we're not looking to outward appearances. We're looking on the heart. During your test, you could donate all your time, energy, and talents to good causes. But if you're doing good deeds with the sole purpose of earning extra credit on your inheritance test, your character will remain unchanged. It's not enough to make the right choices. You must make the right choices for the right reasons.
Oh, so it's like those personality quizzes, Izzy blurted out.
What are you talking about? I asked with a chuckle, grateful for his unexpected tension-breaking comment. Izzy squirmed under everyone's gaze.
You know, he said bashfully. Those quizzes named things like, which animal are you, or what color is your aura?
Mom raised one perfect eyebrow. I thought we discussed using your holoscreen time more wisely, Isidore. She gently berated. But go on, your analogy has merit. Izzy grinned sheepishly.
Yeah, so in those quizzes, you can get the results you want by gaming the system. If you want to be a lion, you pick answers like assertive, athletic, and social. But if you want to be a mole, you pick answers like observant, quiet, and introspective. But then, if you answer the questions honestly, you'll find out you're actually a prairie dog.
You would be a prairie dog, Jadith smirked.
Let me finish,
Izzy insisted.
My point is, sometimes you're so determined to be one thing, you stop yourself from finding out who you really are. So when Dad talked about people doing things they wouldn't normally do just to get points on their inheritance test, it made me think of that. And, yeah, that's all.
He finished awkwardly. Thank you, Isidore, Dad said. You've emphasized the point that outcome isn't everything. All of you have visions for your future. Perhaps you want to rule a kingdom or make new discoveries or create a family of your own. But why do you want those things? Do you feel it is your duty as our heirs? He looked directly at Enish. Or do you think it's what society expects of you? Are you choosing goals that will bring you true happiness? You are all so young,
Mom continued. And you have all eternity before you. But the decisions you make now will determine your futures. That's why, at this critical juncture, we are offering you this mortal experience. We want to give you the freedom to explore who you are and what you really want. Mortality is a gift, not a punishment. The mood of the room had definitely picked up. Lucian still wasn't smiling, but at least he wasn't scowling either. I was certainly feeling better. I'd pictured an inheritance test as a difficult set of tasks that had to be completed to perfection, but our parents were making it sound more like an exploratory learning experience. That didn't sound too bad. Then they dropped the bombshell.
As Isidore pointed out, Dad said, when you have a certain outcome in mind, it's tempting to try to game the system. If you remember you're taking an inheritance test, you won't make honest decisions. Instead of exploring your natures and discovering what brings you lasting joy, you'll spend your entire test doing exclusively the things you believe will produce your desired outcome. By so doing, you'll miss valuable learning opportunities and invalidate your test.
We want you to enter mortality with a curious mind and a heart open to all possibilities. Mom added, you must learn to be good, instead of merely doing good in hopes of a promised reward. You need a way to explore the long-term consequences of your decisions without fear of immediate retribution. There is only one way to accomplish such free agency. She paused to ensure we were all paying attention. We will need to instate a memory veil.